The show where three comedians take you through tomorrow's news stories. I'm one of the comedians, I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight I'm joined by the host of hit podcast Trigonometry, Francis Foster, and headliner stalwart Cressida Wetton. How are you both doing?
Very good.
Very good. Excited to be here, mate.
Yeah, seems like you're moving away from trigonometry and doing more GB News.
I'm just in desperate need of money, mate.
Aren't we all? Anyway, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with woman gives womb to her sister in UK transplant first. The Guardian leads with hospital accused of fobbing off parents of let-be murder victims. They've also got a picture there of the people rescued in Pakistan from the cable car. The iNews has Sister's Gift, Britain's first womb transplant. The Express leads with landmark deal proves Brexit voices of doom are wrong. The Metro leads with I gave womb to my baby sister. And finally, the Daily Star has shoo. That's about bugs, by the way. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Mail. Francis, what have they got?
Well, the Daily Mail lead with this story, which is woman gives womb to her sister in UK transplant first. So she has given her womb to her sister, and it's taken a 17-hour operation.
Wow.
But it means that she can now have children, hopefully.
Because it must be.
It's not a guarantee. It's still.
Oh, well, we're trying to be positive for the woman, Chris.
Well, I'm just saying it's not easy, is it? It's not straightforward. But it's looking good because the woman who the womb is coming from has already had 2 children.
Right. So we know it works.
Yeah, no, really, that's one of the doctors say they look for wombs that have already been used to have a child. That increases your chances.
Pre-tested.
Yes, pre-tested.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And we covered a story recently about the possibility, scientists were talking about the possibility of transplanting wombs into transgender women so that they could one day have babies, or if they're ultra-liberal, have abortions. And some people were upset about this, and some women were saying they were going to remove themselves from the donor register because they didn't want their womb.
Yeah, but it was only speculation, wasn't it? Because actually, I think what they were saying was that now we know it's possible in women, maybe one day we could do it in transgender women.
Yeah.
But it's still a long way off, and people were talking about things like the body not having the right hormones and there being all these problems. Where would the baby come out? I guess it would be a cesarean.
Yeah.
Yeah, or from... No, that's a very painful place for it to come out. Carry on.
Some very unpleasant cartoons on the internet. Yeah, so it's in its infancy. But this is amazing for this family, isn't it? What a gift. My brother won't even let me borrow his van, you know. This is it's amazing.
And has it been used a couple of times? Has it been proven to work?
I dread to think what's been in my brother's van.
OK. What does the Guardian have on the front cover, Cressida?
The Guardian has hospital accused of fobbing off parents of let-be murder victims. So some of the parents who lost one of their sons, their baby sons, and another was poisoned, have come out and said that they tried repeatedly to contact Ian Harvey, who is part of the senior management at the hospital. And, of course, this seems absolutely outrageous in hindsight. In his defence, one of the things he said is that he had to go through the police family liaison officers at the time, but it wasn't made clear to the parents, because this was already, the police were involved once that started. Yeah. He couldn't just speak freely. But that's no excuse for not making that clear to those parents. I mean, they would have been in... it's just horrific. I
mean, the more that comes out about this, about failures or assumed failures in the executives and in the management of the hospital, it just seems absolutely appalling that, you know, it wasn't stopped sooner. There were so many chances to stop her, and whistleblowers came forward. And the whistleblowers, it was like the grooming gang scandal. The whistleblowers that came forward, instead of being listened to, they were forced to write apology letters. And, you know, it's like in Rotherham, where the whistleblowers were sent on diversity training and told to keep their mouths shut.
And it wasn't just that. I mean, you think with these whistleblowers, if it had just been, you know, almost regular staff, it would be easier to ignore. These were the head of paediatrics at the hospital. These were senior paediatricians coming to the head of the hospital and going, look, we have a very real problem with this nurse, and they were forced to apologise.
Insanity.
It is completely insane. And of course, there are many tragic aspects to this story, but I think one of the real tragic aspects to this is I don't think we've actually scratched the surface with this story. I think that a deep investigation is going to need to happen, and I think we're going to uncover more children that were killed or
And there'll be
murdered
people
as a
who will
result.
never know.
Yes.
They're going to look into the deaths of 4,000 more babies. There's calls for an independent inquiry, which means these people won't be able to... Nobody will be able to keep quiet. If you're called, you're called. It's going to take
it's like
years.
Harold Shipman. You know, we don't know the full extent of his murders either.
Yeah.
And is it the case that, you know, in a large public sector organisation that's really a monolith with no competitors, there isn't the accountability that you'd get in a smaller, you know, more agile organisation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's true. I've got a friend who, unfortunately, him and his wife had a miscarriage. And then they subsequently got a letter calling them in for a scan for a baby that had already passed. And they complained about it. And then they got another letter for the same... And you just think, you know, and what do they do about that? Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, without that drive, that incentive throughout the
Yes.
organisation to improve and rectify mistakes, you know, things are going to go unchecked, and things like this can carry on. This
That's
is the
not
worst
about
example of it.
funding. That's not a funding issue. That's to do with admin, isn't it? And
Yeah.
processes and catching mistakes, you know?
But it's also as well, you know, there was a lot of disbelief, as in people didn't want to believe what was actually happening in this story. They didn't want to believe that one of their nurses was doing this. They called her Nice Lucy. They didn't want to believe that children, infants were being murdered on their watch.
Yeah, but the data was right in front of them.
Of course, of
And
course.
They should have known. Anyway, moving on to the Express, Francis. What have they got in the cover?
So, yes, this is a landmark deal, proves Brexit voices of doom are wrong. And this is the deal that Kemi Badenoch has struck with India. Because one of the things that we were promised after Brexit is that we were going to have a more global outlook.
Well, it only took us half a decade.
Yes, but we're here and we're doing it. Is it even half a decade? It's more than that.
It's more, yeah.
Yeah, it's 7 years.
Oh, my God.
7 years.
Time flies when you're not really having much fun.
Yeah, and basically tearing families apart. But Kemi Badenoch has struck this deal, which means that we're going to be in partnership with India, which is quite exciting. But possibly the most exciting part of this deal is that they are building a factory for car batteries in the UK.
Yeah.
And it's going to create a lot of jobs.
You have 4,000 jobs, I believe.
Yeah.
They're investing $4 billion in the UK. I mean, this is great to see, Cresta. India's a
Fantastic.
huge market with a huge and burgeoning middle-class population who I'm sure would love to buy all the stuff that we make.
I'm thrilled to hear it. That's absolutely fantastic news. People won't be able to keep saying if you voted for Brexit, you're just a racist anymore.
Exactly.
They'll probably all get put to bed now and nobody will say that anymore.
Well, this is the thing about Brexit, because everybody said Brexit's racist. And really, Brexit was about restricting the immigration coming from Europe, which is mainly white, and opening up our immigration market to the world, which is, you know, generally not white. So if anything, Brexit was anti-racist, and all the people who voted Remain are massive racists. Anyway, moving on to the Daily Star, Cresta. What have they got in the front cover?
We've got Shoo. Warm and wet weather sends hordes of pesky bugs swarming our way. This is great news, especially for somebody that lives near waterways. Mosquito bites, anyone? I mean, that's awful. Do you suffer terribly?
Yes, I do. I do.
Lovely.
I hate them. I hate them with a passion. They're vicious. I can't even use the word that I want to describe them. Disgusting little creatures. And it's only the women. The men, they're fine. You know this?
I've heard this. I have heard this.
Yeah, the
Male
male...
mosquitoes not bite people.
No,
Apparently
they
not,
don't.
no.
They just eat fruit, mate, and they just chill out, which just proves you can't trust them.
That is toxic femininity
It
right
is.
there.
But we're
It's literally
bloodsuckers.
toxic.
We're
That's if
blood
it's true. I mean, I don't know
suckers.
if it's true. It's just one of those things people say in pubs
No,
and you
it's
assume it's
true.
true. Okay.
It's just like marriage.
But we're seeing
Wow.
200 billion daddy long legs. I mean, they've got to be male.
Yeah,
They're
of
called
course.
daddy long legs.
They are.
That's not very progressive of you, is it?
It is.
Come on.
That's their name. They're called daddy long legs.
Okay.
Well, have you asked them about it?
No, I haven't. But there's going to be 200 billion of them breeding, apparently. I don't know if we get to watch. And there's an invasion.
They're coming over in boats.
Invasion of flies. Yeah, this is... Well, apparently the bubonic plague was spread by gerbils.
Yeah.
That did come in boats. I mean,
Gerbils? No, rats.
No,
surely.
it's spread by gerbils, apparently.
Wow.
I just knocked my own glasses off at the thought. What?
Maybe you should get contact.
Yeah, I probably should. But what do you mean gerbils?
I swear to God. Anyway, we'll research it in the break and I'll prove it. But that's it for part one. Coming up in part two, we've got an Afghan migrant who videoed his journey, Musk threatening Ukraine, and insanely high Scottish drug deaths. Hopefully, I'll still be alive after the break. See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and before we kick off, I'd just like to say thank you to Big Papa, who sent me a personalised mugging. Compliments of Big Papa at the bottom there. Slightly disturbing name. It's a bit like that scene in Pulp Fiction. But anyway, we've got The Guardian now, and Scots have found a jab that's more dangerous than Pfizer, Francis.
Well, this is a very interesting story. It's good news because the Scots are recording the largest fall in drug deaths, but they're still 2.7 times above the UK average.
Yeah, there's still an insane number of Scots dying from drugs. Well, over 1,000 in 2022.
Yeah, over 1,000 in 2022. Literally 3 Scottish people are dying every day as a result of drugs and drug overdoses.
Yeah.
And the SNP, in their infinite wisdom, cut the cut funding to help people with drugs, and it's just. It's heartbreaking when you just see what is going on in Scotland, and a lot of this happened on the watch of the SNP. It has skyrocketed since records began, which was in 1996.
Yeah, so the SNP took power not a huge amount of time after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just shot up since then. Literally shot up, no pun intended.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
other SNP policies increase the likelihood that people are going to take drugs. So they've got the minimum unit alcohol pricing, which makes alcohol more expensive. So people can't actually afford to get blotto on buckfast or traditional means of getting drunk. So they turn to barbiturates or heroin or
I
opiates.
thought this was partly because they can't get good old-fashioned heroin, and there's now all this new synthetic opioid stuff coming in because the Taliban are stopping heroin production.
Yeah,
It's just
Nicola
much more-
Sturgeon missed the chance to cut a deal with the new Afghanistan government when they came in. But yeah, there's also the hopelessness in Scotland.
Yeah.
There's a real sort of poverty of not just material poverty, but a poverty of aspiration and of hope amongst people, because the SNP have really sort of stifled Scotland's, just the feeling of culture, the society, and the economy as well. It's become very sort of a state-oriented economy.
Well, the problem is that this is a symptom of what is going on in Scottish society. And nobody goes or gets addicted to heroin because things are going well in their life. Do you know what I mean? No one ever goes, you know what, I'm absolutely smashing it, let's pick up the needle.
Wait a minute, what about Motley Crue?
Motley Crue?
Making millions of pounds? Having a great time like in California, and they all got addicted to heroin.
Look, they're anomalous. It says
Yeah.
here that most of this is death rates are 16 times higher in deprived areas.
Yeah,
So
I doubt any people in Stirling are having similar lives to Motley Crue, Leo. But it speaks to the fact that there's an epidemic of hopelessness at the moment in Scotland.
Yeah.
And particularly during the pandemic, it was so badly handled. It was so egregious what they did to people's rights up there, what they did to the economy. They crippled the economy. I'm not surprised that people are desperate.
Yeah, well, hopefully somebody can inject some hope into Scotland. Anyway, The Guardian now, in children's prisons are doing away with the maxim, spare the rod and spoil the child, Cressida.
pain-inducing restraint to be banned in England and Wales children's prisons. I'm amazed that had to be said. I had no idea. So, new Ministry of Justice policy says such techniques must only be used in emergency scenarios, which sort of implies there's been some recreational pain causing, as if that's like one of the perks of the job, but they're tightening up on it. So there was a review 20 years ago because a young man, I haven't got his name here, Adam Rickwood, he hanged himself 6 hours after he'd had a nose distraction. There's these specific...
nose distraction?
Well,
these are very euphemistic terms.
It means a karate chop to the nose. Now, I don't know what he was doing, but it just...
For a child?
He was
14 years
14. 6 hours later, he hanged himself and he left a suicide note saying, what gave you the right to hurt children? And 20 years later, this is being looked... You know, we're now... Policy is changing.
Because it's not just the physical pain, it's the powerlessness and the humiliation that these children
Well, this
feel.
is it. So the point of this is that we don't want this happening as an intimidating... we don't want it as part of the culture. It's going to be just in specific scenarios when somebody's really in danger, maybe there's a danger to life, something like that.
Yeah. Because Francis, some of these techniques, I mean, the terms they use, mandibular angle technique, it doesn't sound that bad, but then you find out it's they're using pain in somebody's ear.
Yes.
There's the thumb flexion, twisting somebody's thumb, the wrist flexion, these goose locks that they get people in that are incredibly painful.
They are incredibly painful. Now, look, there's the other side of this argument is that they are working with children who have, some of whom are very violent and they're very, very abusive. And it's always difficult when you're breaking up a fight between two 14 or 15-year-olds, who some of whom can be quite large and can be the same size as men.
No need to body shame.
And trying to break that up. But I do agree with you. Wherever possible, restraint should be used that does not inflict harm on the person that you're restraining.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, common sense.
Anyway, the Mail now, and a cross-channel migrant has filmed his journey across Europe, and it looks more like a gap year adventure than a desperate refugee, Francis.
Yes, so he's put it on TikTok. It's delivered brilliant views, and it's something that we're all jealous of here, because I don't think we've had that level of views, mate, or virality at all. So the asylum seeker is thought to be an Afghan national, and what he's done is a sort of day in the life of a refugee.
Yeah, we've got the footage. This is him in his hotel in London.
Right, that's lovely. Look at him just chilling out there. Fantastic.
The production value, I mean, it looks like a sort of Thomas Cook advert, doesn't it?
It does. Look at him. And he's there.
I wish when I was homeless, I could have stayed in a place like that.
Exactly. Look, he looks absolutely chuffed. And there is some poor soul outside, you know, addicted to heroin, currently homeless, probably Scottish. Where's his hotel room?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, Scotland already does get quite a lot of Westminster's money. But yeah, this seems ridiculous. And he's obviously, you know, quite a capable young man. Doesn't seem to be in any distress. He's left Afghanistan to make his way across Europe to obviously, you know, find a better life.
Up until now, I've looked at the videos of them sinking and I felt enormously compassionate. And even when you see young men kind of being bravado, I've always thought, well, they must be terrified inside and, you know, they don't know what they're going to and all. And I have to say, this video, he looks pretty comfortable.
He does.
I don't know.
He does. And also as well, you've got to admire him. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I've got full respect. It reminds me of, you know, like the opening sequences of Scarface when he's thrown out of Cuba.
Yeah.
And, you know, he comes to Miami to make his life.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I mean, fair enough. I don't, you know, I might not agree with, you know, everything that, you know, cross-channel migrants do or anything, but I respect the entrepreneurial zeal of somebody, you know, going on that adventure and crossing the channel. But it's ridiculous that people refer to them as, you know, the most desperate and needy people in society. Because if you can afford to pay $5 grand to a people smuggler, you're by definition not the neediest and most desperate.
Yeah, and it's also as well the French. I mean, they've obviously been useless because French people are useless. And they've been absolutely useless in stopping this trade, in stopping people coming over. And the worst part about it is they've been even more useless this year than they were last year.
Even though we're paying £500 million.
Yeah.
And that's pounds, not francs or euros, pounds.
Exactly. Exactly. We're paying $500 million, and of course, why would you give money to a Frenchman to do a job? You know they're going to be on strike all the time. You know they're not going to do any work. You know they've not gone...
I would just like to apologise to Ofcom for the egregious francophobic racism there. Anyway, the Mirror now with some good news. If you're smart and work hard, you can beat the cost of living crisis, Cressida.
Fat cat bosses scoop extra £500,000 per year as workers suffer under crushing inflation. Yeah, so the people at the top are getting further and further up, which is kind of what you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how life works.
Bet they're not French.
Well, one of them's a little bit French. This is the person at the absolute top of the tree, Pascal Soriot, who's the CEO of AstraZeneca.
Le Grand Chat.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how, you know, that's great, isn't it? The person making the most money is the person who's been making our safe and effective treatment. And at first I thought...
with the taxpayers' money.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And at first, yeah, exactly. And I thought, well, maybe the people at the top are paying massive amounts of tax. And I looked him up. He's this year decided to make his latest factory in Ireland because the UK, we're not offering... tax breaks that he likes.
So the stuff will be sold in the UK and we'll pay for it. Our taxes will pay for it, but the tax on the stuff that's sold will be paid in Ireland. Well, that's lovely.
Yeah. And I made my points before with the previous story and I got silent. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Francis, I mean, we always see people in the Mirror. You know, we know it's a left-wing newspaper. Yeah. They're always moaning about fat cats and you know business elites. But if it's so easy, why don't left-wing people do it and become the leaders of AstraZeneca? Surely, you know, these people deserve the rewards. They're doing a very incredibly difficult job leading these, you know, global companies.
Well, look, here's the thing. It is actually incredibly difficult to be a CEO. The vast majority of people who have that type of aspiration never get there. You are responsible for a huge company. If something goes wrong, it is entirely on your watch. So you could argue that they deserve that money because very few people can do that job at that particular level. I'm just saying maybe it shouldn't be Pascal. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Anyway, talking of fat cat bosses, Ukraine is at the mercy of an erratic billionaire, and it's not Putin, it's Elon Musk. This is in The Independent, Francis.
Yes, it is. So Elon Musk has engaged in direct conversation with Vladimir Putin, according to a Pentagon official. So the billionaire told Colin Cole, the Under-Secretary of Defense for Policy at the Pentagon, that he had spoken to Putin personally, and this left them a little bit shocked because, it's very worrying because obviously we are at war with Russia. The Americans are at war with Russia.
And Ukraine is dependent on Elon Musk's Starlink internet system based on satellites to guide its munitions and to guide reconnaissance on the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. So they're very, very worried because what they don't want is Musk having some type of pro-Russian sympathies.
Well, because he did turn off, I believe he turned off the access to Starlink over Russian territory briefly before he was urged to turn it back on. I mean, in his defence, he was funding it entirely himself. I know he's got some money, but...
It's about money. It looks like nobody was paying for it. And so eventually, to be fair to Musk, he said, oh, OK, to hell with it. Even though Starlink is losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayer dollar, we'll keep funding Ukraine government for free. So it's partly about funding.
He's also touted a pro-Russia peace plan, which, would involve Russia keeping some of the territory it seized, which, is pretty unfair on Ukraine. I doubt, America or, any other country would say, oh, no, you can keep, if we in Britain, we'd be like, oh, no, you can keep Cornwall. Like, that wouldn't happen.
Would anyone miss them?
Well, maybe Cornwall's a bad example.
Yeah, done. I've lived in Cornwall.
Cornwall's like the nicest part of the UK.
No, it's not. It's nice when it's sunny, which is about 12 days of the year. The rest of the time, it's a barren, uninhabitable wasteland.
That still sounds better than the rest of the UK. Anyway, that's it for part 2. Coming up in part 3, we've got Oiks at Eton, The Guardian demanding slavery reparations, and the funniest jokes of the Edinburgh Fringe. See you in a couple of minutes.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most places will have a fine day. Some places seeing quite a bit of sunshine, others staying fairly cloudy. The warmest conditions in the south, close to this area of high pressure. We've had a bit of a north-south split today. The low further north has been bringing more clouds and a fair few showers. Still some of those around this evening, particularly across central and southern Scotland, but clearing away. So most of us will have a dry night. There'll be some lengthy clear spells, perhaps clouding over somewhat across South Wales as we head through the early hours. It'll be another warm night in the south, but a bit colder than last night further north. Temperatures certainly across northern Scotland well down into single figures. But it should be a bright start here, maybe the odd shower over the Northern Isles. We'll see more showers through the day across western Scotland and some more cloud across the western half of Wales with some light rain and drizzle possible, particularly so through the morning. But a good part of southern England, eastern England and northern England seeing some decent spells of sunshine. A warmer day across the northeast of England too. Warmest in the south, 25, 26 degrees. Where it's cloudier, temperatures more likely to be in the high teens. Now Thursday's a bit of a mishmash. Rain clearing away from Scotland and Northern Ireland, brightening up here, but there is the potential for some heavy showers across the south. Just a risk at this stage. Got plans in the south on Thursday. Keep up to date with the forecast. Still quite warm and humid here. Again, elsewhere temperatures high teens or low 20s. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Kicking things off with the Mail, and a preschool is indoctrinating toddlers into the world of fetish sex. Francis, what's this all about?
Well, this is what we call in the business a dream Daily Mail story, Leo. This is a moment when the editors at the Daily Mails rub their hands and when, boys, we have a belter.
But it sounds like it's not just them rubbing their hands. I mean, this is a horrific... I find this horrific. You know, this level of sexualised...
Yeah.
Basically propaganda in a preschool.
I think you're a transphobic piece of excrement.
But it's not even about trans people. Well,
yeah,
yes, it is.
Yeah, of course it does. So anyway, parents removed their 4-year-old daughter from preschool after she was shown Grandads Pride, a book featuring men in bondage gear and trans top surgery. That was written by the winner of the Waterstones Children's Book Prize. So this couple sent their little girl to a nursery, expecting her to, you know, be taught and to be socialised. And turns out...
Maybe have a book explaining what a dog is.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Preschool, I didn't even think...
No, yeah, exactly. You're never too early to learn about bondage, Cress. Get with the programme. Now, she was exposed to this book, and one image shows the two... It's all about Grandad, Grandad going to a Pride march.
Right.
And... on the Pride March, she sees her granddad going to Pride, and she sees people dressed in adult leatherwear and some images which are described as culturally sensitive. One image shows 2 men in fetish gear kissing during a Pride March, whilst another marcher holds up a sign saying, "All you need is love." And they're both partially naked, and one has a leather codpiece moulded tightly around his...
I mean, Granny's laughing, but this is shocking.
Next time, Russ.
No, I haven't finished. He's got garters down his thighs, and he also has a studded leather dog collar around his neck.
This is for preschools.
Yes.
We're going to get to a point where Roy Chubby Brown's going to get banned and someone's going to say, "Where do you think you are? This is a comedy club, not a primary school." Like, it's just...
Yeah. Look,
the levels of prurience, I just don't understand modern morality. As Cresta points out, comedians get cancelled for having, perfectly reasonable science-based opinions. And then you've got this being pushed on toddlers who don't even understand it. I mean, this is the thing, sexuality, fine. Obviously, except some, kids have got two mummies, some kids have got two daddies, some kids' granddads are gay or whatever. Why does a toddler need to see them in a leather codpiece?
Because this phrase age appropriate.
No,
this is not.
You're being incredibly homophobic.
They describe
bigoted.
it as culturally insensitive, and I'd love to know what culture it's acceptable to expose toddlers to granddads in fetish gear. That's insanity.
Because this is progress, Leo. This is what we're doing. We are going to the glorious sunny uplands of where we can, where we can be who we want to be. Well, if we want to get a 3-year-old and dress them up, in a codpiece, that's what we do now. This is progress, mate.
It feels like we're progressing down a hole to Hades itself. Anyway, The Guardian now is demanding slavery reparations. I'm looking forward to a fat cheque from Vikings and Berbers, Cressida.
UK cannot ignore calls for slavery reparations, says leading UN judge. So Judge Patrick Robinson, who presided over the trial of former Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic, said the international tide on slavery reparations is quickly shifting and urged the UK to change its current position on the issue. So currently, Rishi Sunak has said, no, we're not apologising for it. And this guy... he's clearly a man with some status, given what his career. But
and he's speaking in his official capacity as part of the UN.
But I mean, I don't know how even if you want to do, I don't know how you would execute this, because the amounts he's talking about are in the trillions. So he says that the UK should be required to pay $24 trillion. And the reason it's so high, he says it's not surprising because this figure was arrived at over hundreds of years. And he thinks it would be, because it was arrived at over hundreds of years and it's so much money, he's not going to make us pay it back immediately. He says we've got 10
Consolidate it in a single lump sum.
Yes, Carol
we don't even use dollars. We use pounds. He's not even done his homework. This is ridiculous.
Well, he's
and also
suggesting a 10 to 25 year window for repaying this. I mean,
you can have a 10 to 25 shoving it up his hole. This is nonsense. And also, Francis, Britain ended slavery.
Yeah.
Britain is responsible. It's the only country in the world that's taken that step to be the first to end slavery. And there's more slavery in the world now than there was at the height of the transatlantic slave trade, but it's not being done by British people. It's not being done by white people, so nobody wants to say anything about it. It's being done in Libya, it's being done in the Middle East, it's being done in China, so woke people won't touch it because it doesn't fit in with their little worldview.
Well, look, Leo, what you have is internalised whiteness.
It's on the outside as well.
Yeah, OK, and you're a white supremacist, and that's why you're not on board with this. Listen, there needs to be reparations, and I now identify as a transatlantic slave, and I can't wait till I get my cheque in the post.
What do you do if you're mixed race?
What?
Do you give yourself a cheque if you're mixed race? What do you...
then if you're mixed race, what you do is you get one of those DNA tests, and they go 23%, I don't know, Congolese, and then you go, right, well, I want my 23%. That's how it works.
I don't know how you would execute this, even if you truly wanted to. I don't know how you would ever do it.
And also, it seems to play into the hands of the extreme far right, who say they want to undo every aspect of slavery, including forcible repatriation, which this seems to be going along the lines of saying, well, we need to unpick everything that slavery did, which is impossible for a start. And surely we should be looking to try and bring society together instead of saying to half a society you need to pay all your money to that half. I don't know, it's absolutely nonsense. Anyway,
and it's also ahistorical because in all seriousness it also doesn't take into account the fact that actually a lot of these slaves were sold by the tribes people to the slavers who then took them to the United States. And it also ignores the trans-Saharan slave trade for the Ottoman Empire, which was actually far more brutal and actually trafficked far more slaves than the transatlantic slave trade. Anyway.
Hopefully those tribes that sold the slaves, tribes in Africa, hopefully they invested the money and they still have a lot of it to pay these reparations.
I'm just saying we should blame the Turks.
Moving on, the Telegraph now, and the Education Secretary is clashing with Keir over whether university is affordable, Francis.
Well, so this is Keir Starmer saying that if he was a young man now, he wouldn't be able to afford to go to university. And considering Keir went to a private school, I find that highly unlikely. Yeah. But anyway, we'll gloss over that fact. So he's saying that it's the university system has become more and more unaffordable the more we have gone. The more the loan system has come in, the grants that have been taken away. And actually, the person who is at fault for this is Tony Blair, who decided that 50% of our young people should go to university. And when pressed upon that fact, he had no coherent explanation as to why it should be 50%, why not 8%, why not 52%. Too many people are going to university. We have a deficit.
Loads of them are thick.
And loads of them are thick, exactly. We have a deficit in the skills trade, and you can earn far more becoming a gas boiler engineer, for example. You can earn up to something.
That sounds really hard.
It is hard, but you can earn up to something like.
This is a lot harder than going to university.
Yeah, it is. Where you
get
do
a gender studies degree, just like that, just turn up.
Don't do gender studies. Any degree with studies on the title, don't.
I did a theatre studies degree, and look at me.
OK, quickly on the next one, we're staying with education. It's the Telegraph again, and Eton is destroying the only reason to send your kids to Eton.
Exactly. Eton to open state sixth forms for young people from deprived areas. So Eton are planning to set up some little Etons near Middlesbrough and some places in the north. I think only somebody who'd been to Eton could think they could close the north-south divide. This is what they're think. Oh, there's a north-south divide. We're going to cancel that, which is amazing. I mean, maybe it's positive that they're trying to do that, but who's paying for this? Presumably, as Eton are paying for it, that means that the parents who pay for Eton are now going to pay for the OITs.
But are Eton paying for this? Because they're saying they're going to be state schools. They're going to be free to access.
Well, there's something in here about them paying.
They're going to be giving a donation.
Yes, exactly. $3 million a year is coming from Eton.
So that'll cover what? The gym kit? I mean,
Okay, fair point.
But the reality is, and nobody ever wants to admit this in education, but the greatest amount of social mobility that we had was in the 1950s and 60s when we had the grammar school system. The grammar school system led to lots of young people from deprived and working class areas getting a really, really good education away from people who were chronically disruptive, trying to destroy the learning, and the lessons couldn't progress. What we need, if we actually truly care about social mobility, is reinstating grammar schools in the poorest areas.
Bring back grammar schools. That's Francis's answer. Sounds good to me. Anyway, that's it for part 3. In the final section, we'll have nuclear waste, Kanye West's wife, and something else that I can't remember. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Put your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking things off with the Times with the supposedly funniest joke at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's more like when you buy Christmas crackers on Wish, Francis.
It is indeed. So, for those of you who don't know, at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, there you have the funniest...
Bringing your own jokes.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Just
so
getting...
cynical.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate the entire thing. Anyway, they do the funniest joke at the Edinburgh Fringe. And they do a little short list. So we're going to read some of them. The number one best joke at the Edinburgh Fringe, get ready for this one. I started dating a zookeeper, but it turned out he was a cheater.
That's like when Lenny Bruce had his material read in court from a policeman's notebook. That might not be the delivery that Lorna Rose treated.
But Francis is famous for being able to suck the humour out of his own...
yeah, exactly.
Can I do number 2? This is my friend Liz Gutterbach, and I think it's brilliant. Her joke, she's American, she says, the most British thing I've heard, a lady who said, well, I'm sorry, but I don't apologise.
I mean, that's a decent...
And the accent. I'll read out my friends as well. So Masai Graham, who's a great comedian, said, I thought I'd start off with a joke about the Titanic just to break the ice. Also, Roger Swift, who's also a fantastic guy and loves jokes, and he does all these crazy props for his stuff. He says, my friend got locked in a coffee place overnight. Now he only ever goes into Starbucks, not the rivals. He's claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with the Edinburgh Fringe joke, this is done by the Dave TV channel.
Yeah.
Simon Evans has a theory that they pick the main joke to be deliberately bad to sort of make people think that it's better to stay in and watch Dave. I think it's just because picking a obviously terrible joke creates this online furore where people are like, oh my God, comedy's terrible. And then,
here we are.
And then everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, it's true, and it is. But they are right, because comedy is terrible. Yeah. So actually, the hypothesis is not incorrect.
OK, well, moving on, we've got The Guardian now, and if I know Japan well, this next story will result in giant lizards destroying Tokyo, Francis.
It is indeed. So it is the Fukushima power plant. Now, after the disaster, they have kept a lot of water in tanks. But now they've decided that once it's been cleaned, as it has been, that they're going to reintroduce it into the waterways.
And is it still radioactive?
Well, this is where things get a little bit, how can I put it, a little bit contentious, because they're saying it's absolutely fine, and Greenpeace is saying, no, there's still some radioactive elements within it that are going to damage it. And even China have come out and said, look, if you do this, it's going to really damage our relationship with you and the fishing and the fisheries.
That's China playing politics because Japan's one of their enemies in the region.
Well, maybe, but even...
I agree, but do you fancy some fish that's been swimming around in this?
Yeah, you know what? You know what? I totally would. I totally would. I definitely would, because people overplay the level of danger posed to the public by nuclear power. The average amount of radiation that you absorb each year from nuclear power is equivalent to eating one banana. And bananas aren't, you know, massively
Not known
dangerous.
for it.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
what happens to Banana Man? Guys,
So
come on.
nuclear power is actually one of the safest, if not the safest, forms of power. Even you know, wind is more dangerous because people have to climb up a big ladder to fix the wind turbine and sometimes fall off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
You've convinced me.
There've been a couple of big accidents, but not many.
No, so yes, nuclear is very safe, and it's actually what we need if we are to decarbonise.
Yeah.
It all comes down to tritium, which is a radioactive substance that can't be removed by the facility's water filtration technology. Okay. So we don't know. The only thing we're going to see is that if they do pump it into the water, we're going to get some superfish.
Brilliant. Anyway, everybody loves superfish. Anyway, the Mirror now with a story about Kanye West's wife that I hope comes with pictures, Francis.
Yes, so this is Kanye West's wife, and she is in Italy, which is very exciting for them both. However, the Italians are furious at her outfits. And obviously, when they say Italians, it's the Italian women, because the Italian men, I'm sure, are delighted with what she's been wearing.
Have we got a picture of the outfit?
Let's have a little picture of the outfit. Have we got one?
I could describe it.
Yeah, there we go.
That is. You can that's really see-through.
It is.
Well,
it's marvellous.
Apparently, the front is more see-through.
And this is what
Kanye West on the front. So.
And this is one of what they say. They say one of the sweetest parts of life is knowing that your money doesn't ever buy you class, and that some people, no matter how rich and famous, are just to be pitied. Exactly, as a woman, no man would ever say that.
Well, I'd like to apologise to Italy for that accent. But quickly, before we go, let's fit in The Guardian now. And I think Hitler would actually approve of this use of his house, Cressida.
Hitler's birthhouse in Austria to be turned into a police station. It's so bizarre. Yeah, so apparently there's been years and years of legal wrangling over this.
Yeah.
Because some people say that's what Hitler wanted, apparently. I mean, who leaves that in their will? I want my house to be turned.
I mean, he was a bit of an odd bloke.
But he likes authority. But one of the points is that the people in authority who want to do this are saying if we don't do it, it'll turn into a neo-Nazi shrine. I mean, couldn't they just flatten it? I'm from the West Country, and in Gloucester, Fred West's house was just flattened because they said no one's ever going to want to buy that house.
Yeah. Well, I think there's quite a lot of people who want to buy this house, though.
Well,
but I think they flattened the bunker, so it can't be used as a shrine.
Yeah, they did indeed, but, you know, you can't just flatten every house that he lived in.
Well, yeah, but you could just flatten the houses of genocidal dictators. I mean, there's not that many of them.
Yeah, that is true, but you're not going to flatten every single one of his houses, are you?
OK, well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with "Woman gives womb to her sister in UK transplant first." The Guardian has "Hospital accused of fobbing off parents of let-be murder victims." The iNews leads with "Sister's gift, Britain's first womb transplant." The Express has "Landmark deal proves Brexit voices of doom are wrong." The Metro has "I gave womb to my baby sister." And finally, the Daily Star has "Shoo," that's about bugs. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests tonight, Francis Foster and Cresta Wetton. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with some other people. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast, which is coming up just after this break. I've been Leo Kearse. Good night.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most places will have a fine day. Some places seeing quite a bit of sunshine, others staying fairly cloudy. The warmest conditions in the south, close to this area of high pressure. We've had a bit of a north-south split today. The low further north has been bringing more clouds and a fair few showers. Still some of those around this evening, particularly across central and southern Scotland, but clearing away, so most of us will have a dry night. There'll be some lengthy clear spells, perhaps clouding over somewhat across South Wales as we head through the early hours. It'll be another warm night in the south, but a bit colder than last night further north. Temperatures certainly across northern Scotland well down into single figures. But it should be a bright start here, maybe the odd shower over the Northern Isles. We'll see more showers through the day across western Scotland and small cloud across the western half of Wales, with some light rain and drizzle possible, particularly so through the morning. But a good part of southern England, eastern England and northern England seeing some decent spells of sunshine. A warmer day across the northeast of England too. Warmest in the south, 25-26 degrees. Where it's cloudier, temperatures more likely to be in the high teens. Now, Thursday's a bit of a mishmash. Rain clearing away from Scotland and Northern Ireland, brightening up here, but there is the potential for some heavy showers across the south. Just a risk at this stage. You've got plans in the south on Thursday. Keep up to date with the forecast. Still quite warm and humid here. Again, elsewhere, temperatures high teens or low 20s. Bye for now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. I'll be joining you live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin tonight, where the big debate takes place tomorrow between the presidential hopefuls. Donald Trump will not be here, but he still seems to dominate headlines, on both sides of the pond. We'll also look at an outbreak of sectarian violence that took place in Derby over the weekend. We'll ask, has the politics of the subcontinent come to England? And we'll also look at a school in Hull in East Yorkshire where sexually explicit material was shown to 4-year-old kids. We'll talk to a parent who withdrew their child from the school. All of that coming up, but first, let's get the news headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
Your top stories from the GB newsroom. A former Met police officer has been jailed for 16 years for raping a 16-year-old girl and a female police officer. Adam Provan raped a colleague 6 times and terrorised her so she feared for her life over a 3-year period. He also raped a teenager twice in 2010. Lauren Taylor was a child when he raped her. Now 29, she waived her anonymity to speak out against his crimes.
I was 22 when I finally reported it, and I think being a victim of this kind of crime, I feel like sometimes, you know, you don't really know yourself what you've been through. I don't think I went home, and I don't think it was until the year after it happened that I told someone about it, and they told me, you know, it was rape. I obviously was really upset telling them and sharing it, but I don't think I'd ever really fully understood what happened to me.
Judges will be given new powers to force convicted prisoners to hear their sentencing. GB News can reveal the government's introducing new measures to stop criminals like Lucy Letby from refusing to go to court. Yesterday, the serial baby killer didn't have to listen to impact statements from her victims' parents. The plans will be unveiled in the King's speech in November. There are warnings the UK's migrant crisis is likely to be significantly worse by the next general election. Think tank, the Institute for Public Policy Research, says any incoming government faces a perma-backlog of thousands of new asylum seekers needing long-term accommodation and support. Researchers warn the annual housing costs for the backlog could soar to over £5 billion after 5 years. And all 8 people have now been rescued from the stranded cable car in Pakistan. That's according to the country's Interior Ministry. Earlier, the army was forced to abandon efforts to save them by helicopter because of poor light. The children and their teacher were travelling to school when a cable snapped this morning, leaving them suspended 900 feet in the air. And the chair of the Northern Ireland Policing Board says an independent review has been commissioned following the recent data breaches. The details of serving officers and PSNI staff were published online by mistake earlier this month. A number of other data breaches have since come to light, including the loss of a police officer's laptop